Well, good morning, fellow constitutionalists, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Dan Clements Show, a Christian political talk show. This is episode 816. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior fighting for your right just to be an American. It is June 7th in the year of our Lord 2017. Remember, we're a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. And if you want to talk to me, I didn't have time to get the YouTube chat room opened up. I've been struggling with the buffering and everything that goes to YouTube. I finally have my big computer working to where it's actually going over to my other computer very well. The other computer, I'm showing lag over there on my preview screen. So when I recorded it over there yesterday, which I'm recording it here today, it was doing the same thing as far as my lip sync wasn't all that great. So hopefully I got that taken care of today. I mean, like I said, I see a little bit of lag over there. I'm working on my other computer now. I think I have my main computer fixed. It's an ongoing process here at the Dan Clements Show. So bear with me as we continue to grow. What might happen in the next couple days here until I get this situation figured out is I might just record the video and not have a live show on YouTube for now. Record it and just upload it to that. I can record the quality. I can record very easily on my main computer and upload it until I get this other computer figured out. It was working great, and then something happened. I may end up having to just reboot, reinitialize the whole system over on my Linux broadcast computer because, like I said, something happened last Friday during the power outage, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. Videos for YouTube, real quick here. I do have the Friday video finished. I'm going to be putting it up. I didn't redo yesterday's video and put it up yet because I want to make sure everything gets put in order over on YouTube. So Friday video is done. The audio is put up at Blog Talk Radio if you're listening to Blog Talk Radio. Let me just put a message in there. Good morning, folks. A lot of people are coming in. I think they're going to try to go over to my YouTube channel. And right now I'm up against my CPU usage with everything. The other thing I need to research, I have a huge graphics card in my big computer, but it does not seem to be registering on my OBS. So I have to figure out why that's not registering on my OBS. Because I should be using that and not being up against everything on my big computer, which right now I'm at 100% CPU usage and it's staying right up there. I got to see what kind of resources I'm actually using. I can end that one. Sometimes I have to come in here and just end services. Not that I want to get in and do everything, but that was a huge one right there. I just had something. I just popped it off, so with a backup. I got to schedule these a little bit differently. Folks, like I said, this is a growing concern with the show here. I'm still a one-man operation. Hopefully in the future I will get this everything figured out here. And I had to actually open up Blog Talk Radio on my big computer, and that's why I'm using so much CPU. Because I have a browser opened up, so my CPU usage wasn't so heavy over on my streaming computer. Anyway, enough of the technical babble here at the program. A lot of things have happened, but let's get into the show here. The official drink of the Dan Clements Show is Rocky Mountain High brand. They are a hemp-infused drinks, power shots, bars. They have a Eagle Water, I believe it's called. As far as a alkaloid water that I'm told is really, really good. The hemp oil seems to help me with the pain of my fibromyalgia. I'm literally able to go further into the day. Used to, I'd get done with the show 1, 2 o'clock, I was done. Now I can go 4, 5, 6 o'clock before I really need to sit down and relax my muscles and everything. And I attributed that not only to the medicines I'm on, which carried me pretty much through the day, but also to the hemp oil that seems to help with the muscle pain and everything. So full disclosure, I am a stockholder in Rocky Mountain High Brands, and I do have stock in them. So it's a penny stock. Right now it's trading between 9 and 10 cents a share, but who knows how high it'll go up. And a Monster Energy drink started off the same way as a penny stock, and it's trading up around $100 a share, sometimes more, sometimes less. I haven't checked it out lately. So who knows? And I have several different penny stocks in the hemp field. I have one, just to let you know, and I'm not a stockbroker, and these are not recommendations. These are something I researched myself. You go do your own research as a disclaimer, because I don't want you coming back, well, that Dan Clements, he told me these stocks were good, and I lost my behind on them. I'm not a stockbroker. I'm just telling you what I'm invested in. I do have, it's called Hemp Incorporate from North Carolina, and they are a processor of raw hemp. They don't do the oils. They do the fibers, and they have a machine down there that does that. And they had some issues with the machinery that they had to replace some big ticket items on them. I think today they're supposed to have them replaced and do a production run, see if they can get through a production run on taking the fiber out and whatever it does to the hemp. And a lot of states are planting hemp now. This is something that we've talked about on the show before, that I believe it was unconstitutional for the federal government to be involved in regulating to begin with. The only reason why they regulated it was because it's hard to tell. You can tell, but it's hard to tell hemp from marijuana plants. And so that's why they outlawed hemp production. And hemp has nothing to do with marijuana other than it looks similar to that. And like I said, I think the federal government is way too involved in American society as far as laws and regulations that are unconstitutional for them to be in. And that's part of the draw of this show, is we talk about constitutional things. Now, I'm not sitting here teaching the Constitution every day. That would be boring. I use the current events and the news and politics and things like that to give you examples of how the federal government is overreaching. So I titled the show American Culture Wars. Eventually, and this is just something I've been toying with, if you want to give me your opinion on that, on this particular thing, it would be fine. Basically, I'm going to get out of titling. I'm thinking about just getting out of titling my shows altogether. And the reason why I want to do that is because, not that it's hard to come up with titles, but one of my mentors in this business, Rush Limbaugh, he doesn't use titles on his shows. He just puts his show out and that's it. And pretty soon I think I'm just going to be doing the same thing. I'm just going to be putting the shows out and running with the titles that I have and be done that way. So that's something that I'm hoping to get into in the near future. I was thinking about when I reached the 1000th episode that I started doing that, but I may end up doing that actually sooner. So if you notice a little lag in the YouTube video, I'm trying to get over to the chat room over in YouTube, because that doesn't take up anything just to have a chat room open, and my CPU usage should come back down and everything should quit being laggy on YouTube. Like I said, my on my main computer, everything's working very well. So I just opened up my YouTube and see if I can keep things going that way on my YouTube, and letting people know over at Blog Talk Radio and I'll shut that down if my CPU usage does not come down, because it may not be, looks like it may not be coming down at all. Now, I'm going to have to get out of that. Sorry, folks, I just will not be able to have a YouTube chat room set up over here on this computer. I can try to go over on my other computer here and open it up, and just to have it open so I can see what's going on. Okay. All right, I do have it open, but I won't be able to respond because it's on my other computer, and I can't lean over and type at the same time. So, and I do apologize if the video is a little choppy and it's buffering. Things should be squaring out about right now with that. Okay, today's daily Bible reading. The Gospel of John, chapter 16, verses 32 through 33. This is Jesus talking to the apostles who, in turn, have spoken to us. Indeed, the hour is coming, yes, has now come, that that you will be scattered, each to his own, and will leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. And that is something that should give Christians great comfort, that Jesus has overcome the world. And even though when we think we are alone, and this is for folks, and I sometimes battle with bouts of depression. They're not deep depression, but I do battle with bouts of depression. And this is something that is near and dear to my heart, but I always try to keep in the back of my mind that I'm never alone, that God is always there and God is always with me. So, I just want to emphasize that to you folks, that God is there and God is with you. So, and that's what Jesus told his apostles, because there were the apostles in the early church are going to go through are going to go through the tribulation, with the Roman Empire, and it wasn't going to be good. And so they needed this type of comfort to get them through these things. This quote meal comes from William Law. We must alter our lives in order to alter our hearts, for it is impossible to live one way and pray another. Yeah, when we alter our hearts, we need to alter our lives, and that's a huge struggle with Christians. I struggle with that. We need to alter our lives as we alter our hearts. Today's Bible lesson comes from Al Shannon from Biblical Proof at WordPress.com. Must a man sin? And I'm going to leave it at that, the question, must a man sin? We know that we all sin, but must a man sin? Very, very important question we need to be asking and looking at. We are pretty much in the throes, and have been for quite a while, of a culture war that is going on in the world, and it's not getting any better. And basically, the culture war is between freedom and anti-freedom. It's between having more freedom or having less freedom. And believe it or not, there's a group of people out there that feel that the more freedom we have, the more trouble there's going to be, and the worse things are going to be out there. We need boundaries. We need regulations from a governing body. Now, let me say this real quick. That governing body that these people want to continue to look to regulate things and to suppress our freedoms is made up of fallible humans, men and women, that are sinners just like us, that have opinions just like us, that sometimes have thought processes that aren't really for freedom or pro-freedom, believe it or not. And this is an issue. This is a big issue. And this is the thing that I can't get out of my head, is that people, if they look at their own lives and see how sometimes their decisions they make in life are messed up, and that they expect other people, just by the virtue of being elected, to be able to govern our lives better than we can govern them ourselves. And like I said, this is a huge problem. This is a huge issue in my life, that we put our faith in fallible human beings and sort of check out of the situation. Yeah, they're doing what we think is right, and and if anybody comes along and disagrees with what we believe to be right, and then we're gonna really get mad, and we're really gonna be struggling with them about this, basically having a culture war over this. And we have religious culture war going on in the United States right now. We have a group of people out there that made up in their minds that Islam is the religion of love and peace, when all the evidence is to the contrary. We talked about how I had sort of a revelation on Sunday when Wissam said, he said, we may have been raised a certain way, Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever. But that doesn't necessarily 100% of the times translate into those children growing up into adults actually believing what they were taught, because they never made it their own. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of folks do this, and they do it in Christianity. And in the denominational world is full of this. You know, these folks were raised in these denominations being taught these things, and they never questioned if what they were being taught was scriptural. Same with politics. People are raised to think one way in politics. I don't care if it's freedom or anti-freedom or the old way of thinking, conservative versus liberal. Whatever it is, they were raised a certain way, but they never stopped to think, should I question what mom and dad taught me? Not trying to be smarter than mom and dad, but should you question? I think as a parent, yes, me and my son always got into some decent discussions. When I was a scoutmaster, I had some children that were from very liberal households that we would sit there and they loved to talk to me about politics, because I talked to them about politics from a totally different standpoint than what they were raised about. And when we would actually debate, and that we really did do a lot of debating when I was in Scouts, when we would debate these issues, and this is the good part, we would debate them. We never personally attacked each other. We always talked about the ideas. 9 times out of 10, they would come away with a better understanding of who I was, and I'd come away with a better understanding of who they were and where they were coming from. But in that 9 times out of 10, a lot of times they could not articulate why they believed what they believed. It was just something that mom and dad said, and what mom and dad said, things were supposed to be this way, and you're coming along saying that they're actually not, that, you know, people should be free to do this, do that, you know, and politically, you know, liberalism is socialism, communism, anti-freedom. So, you know, I always enjoyed talking to my Boy Scouts, you know, over camp. Usually it was always around the campfire, folks. We never got into these discussions till at the end of the day, after we were teaching them all these scouty things, and we sat down and we relaxed around the fire, and then we could let our hair down a little bit and discuss a whole myriad of things. And I enjoyed that. I really, really loved that. And it was something that I do miss. You know, I do miss sitting around the campfire and stuff like that. But we're in the middle of a culture war. You know, religiously, I talked about that a little bit. Politically, you know, it is a culture war. And a lot of what happens in a culture war is what people believe to be true. May not be true, may not be factual, but culture is shaped by our beliefs to a certain extent. Now, it can't be 100% shaped by our beliefs, you know, because I think it's culturally acceptable to eat foods that may not be native to the United States. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't look at it as cultural appropriation, because in my mind, food's food. And if people bring over from the old country recipes, foods, things like that from the old country and share them with people here in the United States, that's the American way. That's not cultural appropriation. And it doesn't matter. I'm going to pick on Chinese restaurants. I love Chinese food. I could live on Chinese food for a long, long time without eating any other type of food. I love it that much. I've been into restaurants that were run by students. A lot of what happens, and I even asked them, and I don't have any problem with this, a lot of what happens is students come over here from China to learn in our universities, and they get part-time jobs at local Chinese restaurants. And if you notice some of the more popular restaurants, the wait staff every couple of years seems to rotate in and out. And that's the reason why. They get the education here, they work over here, and they go back to China. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I've also been in Chinese restaurants. I've been in 2 different ones. I thought it was weird. I've been in one, and both of them were driving truck, and one happened to be in New York City, and it was run by a white couple. But I couldn't tell the difference in the food. You know, the food didn't taste any difference because a white couple was actually making it over a Chinese couple. And then I was at one, it was, I believe it was in Chicago. I'm a little fuzzy sometimes, especially in my driving years, where I was eating these things. I know I had some, the best, everybody called it soul food. I just called it comfort food. I got wasn't lost, but I was traveling to Nabisco in Chicago, and I was real hungry. I hadn't ate for some reason. I had to get in there, beat the traffic in, didn't have a chance to eat breakfast or anything. I was really hungry, and I was on the street, and I kept smelling the smell. And, you know, the further down the street I got, the stronger the smell got. And then I seen up on the left-hand side of the road that there was this soul food place, okay? And I was like the only white guy in the area. Traffic wasn't real busy on the street. There was parking along my side of the road anyway. So I pulled over, kicked my flashers on, and went inside. And I got a whole bunch of looks and everything from the patrons sitting there, but no, they weren't bad looks. They were like, whoa, never seen it. You know, maybe I never seen a white guy in here. I don't know if they did or not. But I was a white guy in there. And there was a black older gentleman behind the counter, and he smiled at me. He says, "Can I help you?" And because maybe he thought I was lost or something like that. And I says, "I don't know what it is that smells that good, but I want some of it." And then he really smiled. And I said, "I don't know what to order," but I said, "You fix me up, you know, give me some samples of everything." I did get some chitlins. I liked them. Mainly it was ribs, and whatever they did to them ribs were fantastic. They weren't barbecued, but they were smoked, and they had seasoning on them. And there was some type of rice with red beans and stuff like that, just a little bit of that. And I paid him for it, and I left. And man, that was some of the best eatings I had in a long time. And he didn't refuse to serve me. He didn't think it was weird. Maybe he did think it was weird, but he hit it well. Did I culturally appropriate the soul food because I went in and bought it and consumed it? I don't think so. And there's a whole lot of things in our country that people are getting upset about when it comes to culture. Because, well, out in Oregon, I guess, this taco food truck was shut down over these protests. It was two white girls. They were making Mexican food and selling it, and they were doing a good business, which told me whatever they were doing right. Oh, but our social justice tyrants in this country, oh, that's cultural appropriation. You can't do that. And it's like, what? It's not cultural appropriation. This is what America was all about to begin with. That's what it's always been. It's been a melting pot. You know, not that I've had a lot of French cuisine, but I kind of like French cuisine. I like Chinese cuisine. I like Japanese cuisine. I like some Mexican cuisines as long as it's not too hot, because this white boy can't take the heat. I used to. Can't anymore. And that's fine. They do have milder stuff. It's okay. It's not cultural appropriation to like these things. And to eat them. And it's not cultural appropriation if you are not of the ethnic group like Chinese or Mexican or Japanese. French, I don't think that's really an ethnic group, but, you know, it's not cultural appropriation, folks. It's just you enjoy life and you enjoy what life has to offer in a free society where these people are free to come over and ply their abilities and their wares and their food and whatever. And it's not cultural appropriation if, quote unquote, white privileged people start cooking these things. Because I'll tell you what, they're never going to outnumber the ethnic groups that actually do it too. And I don't hear, and this is the funny part, this is the funny part, most of the protests by these social justice tyrants are not Mexicans. About that Oregon taco truck, they weren't Mexicans, they were whites. There were these whiny whites out there, that these social justice tyrants, and you know, if we had to be what the social justice tyrants were talking about, if we had to continue to keep doing that and wait for somebody else of that ethnicity, of that cultural appropriation that we're doing to do something, we wouldn't have half the things in our country. That's the beauty of America. These folks come over from these other countries that don't have the same freedoms and liberties we have. They come over here like my great-grandpa McCarville did, and he was a farmer. And he went out to the Midwest and farmed and was very successful at it. He raised a family and you know, had a good life by all accounts. And it wasn't cultural appropriation that he brought his Irish farming skills over to America and applied them. That's what America's all about, the freedom to do what you want to do. And the fact that these social justice tyrants out there, whether we're talking about food appropriation, cultural appropriation, or we're talking about global warming or climate change, that's part of our culture. And in America, we've been fighting this for a long time. We were skeptical. I believe right thinking, and I'm not talking about politically right or left, I'm talking about correct thinking Americans, even way back when they were talking about in the 70s that we're coming into a mini ice age. Back then, we were skeptical of that because what they were talking about was human-caused global change or climate change. That's what they were talking about, human-caused, okay? And so that's become part of our culture. And God forbid if you go against the prevailing thoughts of the social justice tyrants out there, the watermelon environmentalists when it comes to climate change. If you're skeptical that we mere human beings can affect the climate on a global scale, that's my best William Shatner. I'm sorry, Scotty. We need more power. So. And we have, and really, where the culture war is really heating up is in politics. Now, America has a unique culture when it comes to politics. We, the founders, come to the conclusion from what Chris Ann calls 700 years of documentation of the March of Freedom. The United States is like the culmination of that. They came to the conclusion that, and these are my words, I'm sort of paraphrasing and lumping everything together, that the American citizen was here before government. Even though governments helped them get, the European governments wanted those pilgrims out of there, wanted the Anabaptists out of there, wanted these people that didn't want to conform to the state religions. They wanted these troublemakers out of their country, so the governments actually helped them a little bit get out. And some people might say, well, the Mayflower was a corporation. The Mayflower was owned by a corporation, a company. In a monarchical society, a society that's run by a monarch, the companies are part of the state. I mean, the state runs, tells them what to do. So they came over here, and our founders and framers recognized the fact that people have always come before governments. So the people have to be sovereign. They have to be looked as the sovereigns, because what happened over in Europe, where they had actual families that were part of royalty, that were the sovereigns, especially the king or the queens, they were sovereign over everybody else and sometimes over the law. And that was a huge problem. And that's what everything sort of culminated from in my mind, from the Magna Carta on down, all right on down here, that they started to build a political society to begin with on the idea that man is sovereign over, man's below God. God is sovereign over everything. And then man comes second over all creation. He's sovereign unto himself. He makes and folks, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand, they don't get, that even God allows us to make choices, whether we're going to accept him or not. Now, there's consequences to those choices, but God allows us to make these choices on what we're going to do, as far as our listening to him or not listening to him. So we're sovereign. Then we created the states. So people always come before government. So we created the colonies. The British government created the colonies and everything like that. And then we had a revolution. We overthrew the king in the colonies. We set up states. People still came before the states. Still had to have people before you have government. You can't have a president that doesn't govern anything. You can't have a governor that doesn't govern any people. It doesn't make any sense. So we set up the states. And in turn, the states, to start with, a real quick lesson here. I know we talked about this before. We had Articles of Confederation, but they didn't work. They were lousy, didn't work. Things were falling apart. So the states got together and said, hey, we need to either fix the Articles of Confederation or start over. So they looked to see if they could fix them, couldn't do it. So at the Constitutional Convention, their mandate was either fix it or replace it. So they replaced it with a constitution, which created the federal government. And this is what's so very, very important about this whole matter here, is that because they created the federal government is subservient to the states, who are subservient to the people. We are a republic. We have representatives that we elect to go represent us as a population center, like a congressional district. that promotes our wants, needs, and desires on the federal level. Okay? And so we're a republic. We're not a democratic republic. We are a republic. We use some democratic processes with our representatives as far as how they're elected and how they govern when they go to the national level or state level. There's simple majorities that, yay, nays on bills passing or not passing, things like that. Real quick history here. So we have a cultural, today we're in a political cultural war because it seems like the country's fairly even divided whether we should go to a democracy, like a social democracy, or whether we should remain a republic and have our freedoms and our rights intact. Remember, our rights never come from government, no matter what the Supreme Court says. And this is an idea that drives people nuts. I know some lawyer folks, I've read articles that this idea drives them nuts, but basically, the Supreme Court is inferior to the people. And why do I say that? Because the people, through their representatives, can change the law. And if the people's representatives change the law, the federal courts have to follow that unless it's totally unconstitutional. And it can be proven to be unconstitutional. But that's a high bar to actually obtain. There really is. And so we have to really, how do I want to put this? We have to really be careful when we explain things like this. But the idea is, and too many people in the anti-freedom group has the pyramid upside down. They have the federal government at the base of everything. It's the federal government is what holds us all together, and then we have the states, and then we have the people. And usually a lot of people say, well, the top is the most important. No, the base, the foundation of a building is the most important aspect of the building. The foundation of the religion is the most important thing. If you get your foundation wrong, your whole religion's wrong. It's going to fall apart. Okay? And that's why Christianity, especially New Testament Christianity, is based on Jesus Christ as the cornerstone. And the cornerstone in ancient building was the most important stone. If you laid that one level and square and everything, the rest of the building followed off of that. So we have all this going into the politics, and again, the Supreme Court is subservient to the people in that way. And like I said, a lot of people are going to argue with me about that. Now we've been talking about the environment because of us pulling out of an unconstitutional Paris Accord. President Obama signed it, didn't get it ratified by the Senate, actually didn't even take it to the Senate, and claimed that this is what we're going to do and started doing it for the whole nation, which was unconstitutional, and that was an impeachable offense. If Congress would just do their job sometimes and actually, when they have proof of impeachable offenses, hold the president, and we're talking about the president, I'll hold him or her, because eventually we're going to have a her, accountable for their actions. I mean, that's the way it is. And we have tomorrow, James Comey, the former FBI director, is going to be testifying. For some reason, and maybe because he's in the executive branch, I didn't really read too much into it, but now that I think about it, President Trump says I'm not going to request executive privilege here. James Comey testified what he wants to testify about, and there's been a whole lot of speculation about what he's going to testify, especially across the anti-freedom blogosphere and news. And they're not all blogs. Let me take that back. Huffington Post, Mother Jones, Slate and Salon, they claim to be news services, and they are to a certain extent, although most of their, not all, but a lot of their reporting is from a socialist, communist, anti-freedom point of view, and that's okay. They're free to do that. They're free to be wrong, just like I'm free to be wrong. We're all free to be wrong. So you have to understand a few things when we're going through all this. Now, so Trump has named FBI director nominee. Let me get up in here. Just to replace James Comey. He announced, will announce on Wednesday, or he did already announce it, that Christopher A. Wray, W-A-R-Y, to serve as new FBI director. Of course, he has to be confirmed. There's some things under this. Is an article from The Hill by Jordan Fabian. So there's some things in there. They were talking about how he was selected, and now so President Trump has put that behind him. He's nominated him now. Now, if he gets through the Senate, that'll be okay. He's been in private law practice for a while, but he was a U.S. attorney under, I believe it was George W. Bush. So he has some experience there. I think he's an outsider coming in. I think that's what they need. They need some fresh blood coming in there, and I think this, from everything I read about Mr. Ray, I'm not sure exactly how he wants that pronounced, W-A-R-Y, Ray or something like that. I'll get the pronunciation of that. So he's named that. He's got that out of the way. So that, and folks, in our political cultural war, that's not going to calm anything down with the FBI. It just isn't. And that's quite telling to me that it isn't. In the news this morning, Iran. And this is something that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. Iran, Khomeini, and I'm not sure how you pronounce that, Masalim attacked, and that's the parliament. And ISIS claims responsibility. So we have the number one exporter of terror in the world being attacked by the number one terror organization in the world, ISIS. They dressed up like women, and they ran into Iran's parliament on Wednesday while suicide bombers targeted a shrine at the Islamic Republic's founder in deadly twin attacks that were claimed by ISIS. At least 12 people were killed and dozens wounded. State broadcaster IRIB quoted the head of Iran's emergency department as saying. So Iran's not even immune to these attacks. So again, we have a situation here where ISIS, a terrorist organization that's supposed to be radical Islamic, and they're not. They're fundamental Islam. And I talked about this the other day on the show. A Muslim has to believe in the Quran. Okay, now they may not, like I said, growing up, they may not bought into that belief, and they may not know what the Quran says, but the ones that do, that buy into it, they're fundamentalist. Okay, and I see that my other computer over there is just, I'm at 100% on my main computer here, and I don't know why. I got everything down to nothing, and I don't even know if I could open up. Oh, let me see if I can open up Blog Talk Radio. Hang on a second, folks. I got to do something here real quick. See if I can open up the Blog Talk Radio over in my other browser and get on the studio and see if it'll pick it up. I don't know if it'll pick it up if I'm already on there. Yes, it will. Haha. It will pick it up. It is actually broadcasting. Oh, you know what? It is because I'm on here. I wonder if I minimize that, and I should be able to stay. Folks, if I lose the Blog Talk Radio broadcast, I do apologize. I think I'll still be able to broadcast on this computer if I don't take that offline. And I'm pretty sure that that's still broadcasting. Hopefully that'll take me down on my CPU usage, and I'm going to have to probably end up re-recording this program too for YouTube. Because I see everything over there is locked up at the time, and everything's buffering over at YouTube. So hopefully that'll drop things. I'm not sure how much it's going to drop things. Okay, well, we're just going to have to soldier on. I forgot to hit the record button on my main computer and record the video over here. No, I did start it. I am recording it, so I apologize, folks. I am recording it over here, so it's not. I'll have to upload this. I won't have to. I won't have to re-record this whole thing. Great. Okay. Oh, this is frustrating, folks. It really is. All right, as we carry on. So I was really surprised to hear that the Iranian parliament was attacked and there was death over there by ISIS folks when Iran's supposed to be the number one exporter of, and I'm not saying it isn't, I'm just saying it's kind of ironic, they're the number one exporter of terrorism, according to everybody, and yet ISIS, it seems like ISIS is attacking everybody they don't agree with. It really is. a couple things here. I talked about this yesterday on the show about, there was a report a long time ago about how you can change, if you're doing a hack, to cover up your hack, you can actually change the way it looks when you're hacking to make it look like somebody else is doing the hacking. This is just the way you can cover things up. And these are some intelligence tools, and there's this defense1.com article by Julian Sanchez, what if the intelligence agencies can't secure their own hacking tools? And this was posted back on March 9th of this year, and this is something that is pretty troublesome. If they cannot secure their own hacking tools, then people out there can actually take these things and use them to their own benefit. And this is a problem. So this is just another thing in this whole drama of this cultural political war that we're going through between freedom and anti-freedom folks. Now, along with that intelligence agency report, Reality Winner, and that's a heck of a name, was arrested, but this is a Slate article. I got to get into this real quick here, because I thought this was kind of interesting. This is from Leon Neyfakh, Neyfakh, at slate.com, posted on the 6th of June. Reality Winner's arrest is not part of Trump's war on leakers. And so he goes on to talk about the president cares more about loyalty than threats to national security. Reality Lay Winner, charged by the DOJ in connection with sending classified materials to a news organization, poses in a picture posted to her Instagram account. So they have a picture up there about that. One of Donald Trump's most intense preoccupations, I got to resize this a little bit, preoccupations since becoming president has been catching leakers who supplied journalists with secret information. While Trump was already on the record as advocating for the execution of Edward Snowden, his problem with leaks wasn't personal before, and it didn't obsess him like it does now. We're going to find the leakers, and they're going to pay a big price, the president told reporters in February, after anonymous sources helped break open the story of disgraced former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn's improper interactions with Russia. It has also been reported, with the help of anonymous sources, of course, that Trump asked now former FBI Director James Comey to jail journalists who published classified information. Okay? Now, let me just back up a minute. Leon is still going off of erroneous reports that are just anonymous. Nothing's confirmed here. This arrest of Miss Winters, and I said this yesterday, I was saying on Facebook, this could be part of a mole hunt. We don't know. And I haven't been, not that I'm going to be, but I haven't been contacted to say quit saying that. This could be part of a mole hunt to stop the leaks. And folks, Leon's nonchalant attitude about this was, it seems to me, it's like, well, it's okay, we have leakers. That's okay, they're patriots. And I dealt with this on Facebook last night. These people, these officials in the executive branch, they took an oath to the Constitution, not to the president. But the problem is, like James Comey, he works for the president. Okay? FBI director works for the president. And a lot of these anonymous leaks that they're saying are coming out aren't from officials. They're from actual staffers that are in these agencies. Private contractors like Miss Winters, were accessing this information. And Miss Winters, if you go read her history, and you Google it real easy, she is a social justice tyrant to the extreme, to the max. She hates Trump. She hates everything about him. She hates the Republican Party. She hates conservatives. And I think she was doing this. And I said, this information, I looked over this information, and something was off on it to me. It really was. On the Intercept, I shared it yesterday, the information, something was a little bit off about it. So, I'm just saying it could be a witch hunt. It really could. He goes on to say, given Trump's stated interest in catching leakers and punishing them, it makes total sense that the arrest of a government contractor for leaking National Security Agency documents to the Intercept would be interpreted as evidence that his war on leakers is now underway. As New York Times national security reporter Adam Goldman wrote on Twitter, and I'm going to stop reading here. The New York Times has a credibility issue, like the Washington Post. I'm pointing that out there. The crackdown on leaks has begun in earnest. Goldman then added, this leak arrest has huge implications. Signal Sessions, Rosensteins are going to carry out Trump's marching orders and imprison leakers. Folks, last time I checked, federal law said it was an offense, it was a criminal offense to leak classified or sensitive information. Okay? What Edward Snowden did may have opened up the eyes of the American people to what the federal government is doing, and I applaud him for that. But it's still a crime, folks, and you got to deal with it on that level. I don't agree with him calling for the execution of Edward Snowden. It was still a crime, no matter how genuine your intentions were or sincere. You still broke the law. Okay, WikiLeaks wouldn't exist unless we had lawbreakers that were giving him sensitive information. Okay, now be that as it may, once the press gets it, there's very little I think the president can do about it, honestly, or the administration or government can do about it because of the protections, the First Amendment protections of the press in the United States. I think there's very little that they can actually do about that. But Leon makes it sound like, that these leakers need to be protected. And we do have whistleblower laws in the United States. We really do. And if the government is doing something wrong, why didn't they go through these whistleblower laws? Why didn't they go that route? There may be a reason after why they don't, but I'm just saying. Okay? There's an obvious logic to this analysis. Trump has made clear to his Justice Department that he wants leakers sniffed out and prosecuted, and now his Justice Department is doing exactly that. But before we ring the alarm and decide we're entered a new era, one in which the president stops yelling about leakers and starts trying to put them in prison, it's worth remembering that actions of the previous administration. It's also worth remembering what motivates Donald Trump. First, USA Today reporter Brad Heath argued on Twitter it's almost certain that Barack Obama's Department of Justice would have sought to prosecute the alleged leaker, 25-year-old reality winner, had this occurred during his administration. This is not just because Winner is accused of having done something obviously illegal and made herself incredibly easy to catch. Is because Obama himself took an infamously severe stance on leakers and whistleblowers. In addition to prosecuting at least 6 government employees and 2 contractors under the Espionage Act, Obama pushed for a national security exemption to the Media Shield law aimed at protecting journalists. He also introduced an initiative called the Insider Threat Program that directed government employees to monitor one another, and his Justice Department secretly obtained phone records for Associated Press journalists as part of an investigation into release of classified information. So this is something that went on before, but you don't hear these people talking about President Obama doing this. It's about Trump hatred, and anything he does is worse than what anything Obama ever did. So go look at this article on the danclemenshow.com, but it is, to say that Reality Winner's arrest is not part of Trump's war on leakers is just a darn right outright lie, folks. Donald Trump said that he was going to take care of this, he was going to work on this, and he absolutely did work on this. And so he's doing what he promised to do. He really, really is. And to say otherwise is telling a fib, actually. We're really, folks, we're getting into dangerous territory here when we don't even want to put forth the truth. That we have reporters from a site like the Slate that doesn't even want to put forth the truth, okay? A couple more things here. Oh, Governor Moonbeam, Jerry Brown, is over in China, and he's setting up some, and states can do this for themselves. They can set up these agreements, trade agreements and everything with other countries, and he's going to keep along this green line, as if California hasn't suffered economically enough. And he's also, this is another thing. California's going to a single-payer health plan that they can't afford. They don't have the money to afford. This is going to be economic suicide for their already damaged economy. I mean, their economy is going to collapse, and it's going to collapse big. And what are they going to expect? What's the country going to expect? The social justice tyrants out there, that the federal government step in and bail California out because they were too stupid to govern themselves. I said it. If Californian voters voted for these people to be in Sacramento, and they're honestly, there are a bunch of social justice tyrants out there that care more about social justice than they do about the economy and economics and taking care of the infrastructure and everything like that. Fine, they can do that. If they're dumb enough to commit economic suicide in California, let them. But don't come crying to the rest of the country and ask for a bailout when it totally collapses on you. Because California is a crisis in the making, and it's of their own making. Because they're going against economic principles. And folks, it's just like the law of gravity. You can test the law of gravity and prove it, but you can't break it. And there are some economic truths in the country, and it's not, a lot of people actually work on the idea of Keynesian economics, where the government is the last resort as far as spending. The government should be in control of the economy, and that's an anti-freedom stance. The Austrian School of Economics touts more freedom, property rights, things along that law, contract law, things along that line, and that freedom and free markets are where the solutions are at. Government control, and California is just a microcosm of what's going to happen to the rest of the country if we would have continued to keep going this way. We're still struggling to get rid of Obamacare. We're still struggling to get rid of the Dodd-Frank bill that have really hampered the economy. And there's other things in the country that the states are actually starting to wake up to. The federalism that's reawakening in the United States, where these unconstitutional laws about hemp production, I'm just picking on hemp for right now, hemp production and medical marijuana in the states. To me, that's a state issue. The federal government does not have any constitutional controlling authority or power granted to them by the states to be doing that. So in essence, the states are nullifying federal law here. Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Colorado, Pennsylvania, and some other states out there, I just rattled off a few, are actually planting hemp now. And they're doing, up in Pennsylvania here, it's a limited acreage, test plots, but I believe next year is going to be a big year for Pennsylvania, because they're working in the Senate to approve, if they haven't already, I haven't really checked into it real heavy, but if they haven't done so already, I think this test plot up by Montoursville, PA, just south of Williamsport, here in the great central Susquehanna Valley, they're planting things, and they're doing what they need to do to get things done. So it's, again, it amazes me how if we put things in the proper order, people, state, federal, if we put things in these proper orders, and the states recognize their duty to protect the citizens, the people of that state that choose to live in that state, against an overreach